the issue that we're seeing with Mark Carney right now isn't just the failure on the negotiation party. We're seeing significant failures and flip flops across the board. If we were to judge him today, it would be a catastrophic failure. To me, that is the ultimate grift.
Journalism and commentary 1 year anniversary.
I don't believe journalism being funded by the government is the solution.
You have to rebuild the foundation. You have to retell the stories. Market conservative
other news that actually matters.
I hence wanted to ask. Do you think they should answer their questions, especially if they're politically charged with?
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Elie Cantin-Nantel. Today we're sitting down with Mario Zelaya. He is a Canadian entrepreneur and social media commentator who has amassed an incredibly large audience, including 500,000 followers on Instagram, as well as hundreds of thousands more on Facebook, on X, and on TikTok. Mario is outspoken, unapologetic, and unafraid to expose the harsh reality of what is going on in Canada. And he joined me for one heck of a show. We talked about what Mark Carney's been up to, the very concerning things that Mark Carney's been up to, some of which in a normal scenario, in a normal country, would be career ending. We talked about the immigration situation in Canada, the trends we're seeing in our country, and there's this clip of a prominent Doug Ford advisor that we reacted to that you need to see for yourself. So without further ado, let's get right to it. But first, be sure you're subscribed if you're not already. Up to 80% of my viewers are not subscribed. I'm trying to get to 25,000 subscribers. Hype and like the video, hit the notification bell, and consider becoming a paid channel member for less than $5 a month because we don't take a dime in federal subsidies.
Oh, Mario, thanks so much for joining me. It's nice to see you.
You too. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're over a year now into Prime Minister Mark Carney, if we can believe it. And if we go back, the whole premise of keeping the Liberals in power for a fourth term and Mark Carney in power over a fourth term was he was a tough guy that was going to stand up to Trump. And he was going to get us a deal. And he was the only one who could do it because he was, in his own words, a globalist and an elitist. And we don't have a deal. And he's conceded to Trump a bunch of stuff, whether it's Gordie Howe, whether it's CRTC regulations. And now there's reports that he may even concede things like supply management and booze ban, et cetera. So what do you make of how Mark Carney has been so far as our prime minister?
Well, I mean, I would honestly recommend people to look at a website called carneywatch.ca. And I literally created it as a chronicle to show the consistent failures that have happened throughout his reign. And the issue that we're seeing with Mark Carney right now isn't just the failure on the negotiation part, even though that was his number one campaign promise, but we're seeing significant failures and flip-flops across the board. Everything that he's been promising Canadians that he would do, he actually has not done at all. Mark Carney has not lived up to the expectation of what he promised. And if we look at the things like, the DST tax, the DST was going to come through, he dropped it right away. And most people have forgotten about that. They forgot about the DST and it happened immediately. And the idea was we're going to be tough, we're going to be strong. Here are the counter tariffs, they dropped those immediately. We built a bridge that cost us $6.4 billion and $500 million was on the American side. Literally in their country, not in ours. We spent $500 million building up the Michigan side of the bridge. And what happens? Donald Trump says, no, we're not opening it up until you start paying up. What does Mark Carney do? He says, well, at least the bridge is open, but we're going to give them 50% of profits and we're going to get paid first. He lied to Canadians. He full-blown lied and he tried blaming it on him wearing a cowboy hat and it being early in the morning in Calgary. But I'm sorry. In no world will that ever blame me telling lies in front of the public to all of Canada on a hat. And so I don't understand how that's acceptable, how that was allowed by the mainstream media to even slide.
That's a good point, Mario. And yet, just looking now at the approval rating for Mark Carney, 55% of Canadians, according to pollsters, approve of the government. So what do you make of that?
It's honestly, the explanation is very easy. The Liberals know that Canadians run off of feelings, and Mark Carney makes them feel good. And feelings will only carry for so long when the actions are the opposite of those feelings. And so he was elected as well. And he said, "Judge me on the, prices of grocery." Well, if we were to judge him today, it would be a catastrophic failure. People are struggling to be able to afford groceries. Food bank use is at an all-time high. Like, this is not getting any cheaper, and it's not getting any better for Canadians. And you start seeing it on the consumer discretionary spending side. If you look at it from an economic perspective, a lot of the discretionary income industries are completely struggling, and we have insolvency rates right now not seen since 2009, which was the peak after the financial market crash of 2008. And so now we're starting to see these effects, and it's only going to get worse. And so what does that mean? People have no disposable income to do anything other than afford the basic necessities, and even then they're not even affording the basic necessities of what they need, hence the record high use of food banks.
Yes, indeed. It's quite shocking when you actually kind of dig deep what's going on, whether it's on the unaffordability, the mass homelessness, crime, disorder. Nothing has gotten better. Everything is continuing downhill. It's the same people, the same staffers, same ministers, and a lot of people seem to not get that. While Mark Carney is enjoying 55% approval ratings, Pierre Poilievre has been the target of a lot of people in the legacy media, but also some conservative strategists, lobbyists, particularly in Ontario. And they'll look at the fact that, well, the conservatives, they aren't polling very well right now, and Pierre's personal popularity isn't very high right now. And they say that maybe this means that he's no longer fit to be leader of the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party needs a new leader to take on Mark Carney. What do you make of this narrative?
Who? Like who? Like who could replace Pierre? The thing with Pierre is Pierre activated so many people, and he got a record amount of voters out for the Conservative Party, surpassing the numbers that Stephen Harper had during his majority. And the reality is, those polls that are currently out right now, I honestly take them with a grain of salt. They start tightening up when you actually have an election and when you're actually heading towards it, because they're forced to do that. In between that, people don't realize this is a propaganda tool. We've had former staffers under Stephen Harper, former communications director, Dimitri Soudis, who had literally said before, we basically, I can't remember his exact words, so I'm not going to make it up, but basically, they can make the polls say whatever they want to say. And that's ultimately what's happening right now. And you have to keep in mind that a lot of these folks, they get funding from the Liberal Party. They get funding from the government. All this is publicly available, some to the tunes of millions or even tens of millions of dollars. And it's no surprise that their polling is showing that Pierre Poilievre needs to go. Why are they so interested in removing him? If it were me and I thought Pierre Poilievre wasn't a threat, I wouldn't go after him. I would keep him there. So why is it that the Liberals want him gone, the mainstream media wants him gone, and the pollsters wants him gone? That's the questions that you really have to start asking yourself. And the reality is, Pierre's, what they say of Pierre's polling, and I'm going to use the air quotes, conservative insiders trying to out him. The reason I'm using those air quotes is, and I always give this analogy, if you tell me you're my friend and you turn around and you stab me in the back, I call you a fake friend. You're not my friend. And so these folks that are parading around, this kingmaker class, that say, they're conservatives when they're actively working against the movement on podcasts that literally no one watches, or on mainstream media, which help the liberals, that's a fake conservative. Because, you cannot sell me this idea of we have to grow the tent. We can't speak this way about these people. You cannot grow the tent when people are actively kicking it down.
That's such a good point. And there's been this kind of debate over the last few weeks about purity tests. And the thing is, I actually support the purity test, and here's why. I've been involved in this now for 10 years. I've seen so many fake conservatives. They get in, they start supporting BLM, queer pride, they spend like sailors, and then they kick out or they block the real conservatives. There was a time when Rebel News was banned from the Conservative Party of Canada convention, but the CBC was allowed in. Like, those were the people running the show. And quite frankly, I don't want those people running the show ever again. So that's why I do think it's important, as you say, to call some of these people out, um, when they behave this way. Speaking of podcasts that not many people listen to, I've got a little clip for you now to react to. This is Corey Tanaik on the Curse of Politics podcast, and he's one of these people who's very critical of Pierre Polyev. So let's watch that now.
It's funny how, like, the thing I thought about in watching those, absolutely ridiculous videos is how ridiculous the videos that Justin Trudeau is posting of him and Katy Perry flitting around, and the lack of seriousness, and just how much these two individuals are just different sides of the same coin. Like, we've talked about it before, but man, oh man, like, that truth just keeps proving itself out again and again and again. The fact is, Pierre is Trudeau. He's right wing Trudeau. As unserious and unaccomplished as Trudeau is, and just a lesser celebrity version of it, one that's more focused on the manosphere and leg day, and bespoke kettle weights, as opposed to somebody who wants to sing loudly at girl concerts.
Pierre Polyev is right wing Trudeau. What do you make of that comment?
Well, I've never heard of this podcast before, and I mean, I find it kind of funny that that there's this continued effort by Corey to go on this podcast with these individuals, and the only consistency that I've seen is attacking Pierre, but he has no problem liking a picture of Mark Carney and his wife parading around Canada. Now, I don't hold anything against him for doing that. I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy of someone who, quote unquote, is a conservative. And the reality is of what Corey Tanaik is trying to compare. Are you really going to compare someone who's no longer in office, bouncing around like a bunny rabbit in videos, going around to different, parades? I don't care what Justin Trudeau does on his time. Believe it or not, I've never once criticized him or even commented on a video or reshared a video saying, "Look how much of an idiot I think Justin Trudeau is." I don't care what he does. He's no longer in power. People know his record. People know the issues that he caused for this country, some which I think might even be past the point of being repaired, including the immigration file. We see nothing but issues but Trudeau, but I never talk about him because he's not in power and I don't care to speak about him. But to compare someone like Trudeau to Pierre Polyev because someone else recorded a video of Pierre Polyev and someone else published a video of Pierre Polyev doing a workout because he's got a kettlebell that he uses. That's his workout routine. Pierre told me, like, that's literally what he works out with. He does a lot of just natural movements. And because someone else did and someone else posted, all of a sudden he's just like Justin Trudeau bouncing around the world with Katy Perry. Like, the logic is just so incredibly flawed, and it is so incredibly pathetic and obvious of the things that Corey Tanaik is trying to do in trying to oust Pierre and trying to make him look like he's some unpopular thing. You think the 7,500 people that watched that little podcast of his that he showed up are people that are going to be voting for the Conservative Party anyways? The majority of those views are probably people from the conservative side literally reclipping or resharing how much of an idiot he sounds like when he says these things to this little like group of people like himself that believe this type of nonsense. It's honestly mean girls bickering by grown adults, and I find it so incredibly pathetic. I personally, I think I look significantly less and think significantly less than I already did of Corey Tanaik when he does things like this.
Well, the thing that I don't really like with this particular podcast is there's no actual ideological diversity. So you look at podcasts and shows in Britain, for example, you got Pierce Morgan Uncensored. It's always like people with very different views having a debate. You have on CNN in the US things like Abby Phillips, same thing. The Five, the Fox News show, they have a Democrat on. And this show, it's supposed to be you have two liberals, the host and Scott Reed. Then you have an NDP lady, but she basically sounds like the liberals. And then you have Corey, who's criticizing Pierre and Trump every week. So it's like, where's the ideological diversity here? They're just all agreeing. And that's why I put on X this week that this podcast is overrated garbage. It's like the number one popular podcast amongst the Ottawa crowd. And it's like, it's not even that good, to be quite honest. I just listen to it to know what these guys are saying so I can talk about it on my show. So yeah.
I'm surprised you're saying it's overrated. I'm surprised it's rated at anything at all. I've never heard of this.
Good point. Well, let's move on. I'm going to show you now. This is the Edmonton police bus that says "See hate, report hate." You're the one who posted that particular image. They got into a lot of controversy over this campaign, and this is something that's happening across the country. You have these so-called non-criminal hate acts, which is basically people have their feelings hurt. And in the case of the Edmonton police, I mean, Edmonton's a city that's overrun by crime, drugs, and disorder. We went there my producer and I back in April, and we got over 100,000 views just shooting how bad the state was. And this is what the police seems to be prioritizing. But there's a lot of concerns that this is step one of a plan to make Canada like the UK, where the police will call up people and investigate them for criticizing Islam, for criticizing immigration, for praying. The list goes on. Do you think we're heading there in Canada?
Short answer, yes, I do. And that picture was shared to me, I think a day or two after the police posted up a ridiculous video on X. And I should clarify before I go any further. When I'm saying the police, I don't mean the people at the front lines. And I think there should be a certain level of respect given to police officers who are working the front lines because the brass, the top brass, a lot of it has been politicized and has become a political role. And they seem to bend towards whatever political party is in power as opposed to really standing up for what's right and what works. The people who actually do it are the ones at the union. The union represents the actual police officers who are at the front line, who are consistently facing danger because of jail, not bail. And so when you have the Liberal Party going around telling you that, hey, we're going to make you guys all safer and we're going to pass all these laws, again, are meant to make you feel good. So if you have these laws that make you feel good and these laws are there to protect your feelings, like, what are we doing here? The police have absolutely no time to enforce these things. And unfortunately, whoever signed off on the initial post that was created on X put language in there where it related more to political beliefs and ideologies as opposed to hate. Like, hey, we need to deport or more deporting more. These are things that cannot be enforced by them. It's completely protected by the charter and it's freedom of speech. It doesn't fall under the hate law that they are currently citing. And so when I see things like this, and there's a mass campaign, and this is what people need to really understand. And I did marketing for Fortune 500 companies for 15 years, and I did it for a very long time. I know their budgets, I know what it takes. But when you have something that is, you have a website, you literally have social media assets that are going out, and then you wrap buses. This is a large scale campaign that is happening for people to report crime. And if you haven't noticed, and if the people didn't see who are watching this, it was written in several different languages. And so there's obviously a shift in priority that is happening at the top brass at the Edmonton Police that is more aligned with the Liberal Party of trying to make people feel good as opposed to actually solving crime.
Yeah, and what we start to see, especially in the UK, is you start having the two-tier policing where the mean tweets are a priority over like murder, uh, again by the leadership, not the actual cops, and that just keeps happening and happening. You talked a bit about jail, not bail. You shot this video. I mean, this is an incredible story out of Guelph of this man that just keeps getting released over and over again. So I'm going to play you your video, and then I'll also play you an insane clip that I found showing how many times this guy's been caught and released.
I want you to see Exhibit A up here of why our country's government is such a joke. They refuse to take strong action against individuals like this. You've probably seen him before. I've made several videos of him before where this guy gets arrested, he gets released within hours, he gets rearrested again, and it literally just happened again. Guelph Police Services themselves literally describes this guy as a high risk offender for women. He has a history of violence and sexual assaults on strangers. And his latest arrest literally happened the same day he was released from Maplehurst. At what point does this just become absurdly ridiculous, where the government actually has to take action against individuals like this? This was the headline less than 2 months ago. Serial high risk offender banned from downtown Guelph. And here's the kicker, he is not a Canadian citizen. Why do we tolerate this? Honestly, why?
I mean, it's a good question. why is this guy in our country? Like, to me, this is so absurd. It's like someone wrote this as a joke, except it's not a joke. There are victims here.
Yeah, I honestly, and this might sound controversial, I truly don't understand how people who are visiting the country, haven't paid a single tax dime, haven't contributed to our economy, hasn't contributed anything meaningful to our country. I don't understand why individuals like this are allowed in our country and then are subject to the same laws as us as Canadian citizens. To me, there needs to be an even higher standard for those visiting the country. So to me, there needs there. I do believe in a two-tier policing system, and I think it should be more difficult for foreigners to be able to get away with this. And whether that sounds controversial or not, I really don't care. But will the streets be safer from foreign criminals? You can bet your ass it will. And it will definitely get every single one of these individuals the heck out of here because we don't need this. I don't pay taxes for this. I don't pay taxes to maybe one day find out that something happened to my wife because he was released and within few hours he was able to recommit. This is happening over and over again. And the reality is this is getting to the point of it's past absurd at this point. And what have the liberals done to resolve this? The reality is in economics and in any part of life, the way you resolve, especially law, the way you resolve a lot of the issues is you look at corner case scenarios. He is a corner case scenario. How do we resolve it? When you have individuals like this that keep reoffending, that keep getting charged, why are we releasing him? Why is he getting bail at all? He should be held until he has trial, or even better, he should just be deported, period.
I tend to agree with the deportation option. This is not a joke. This is the amount of times this guy's been like arrested or in the news. And unfortunately, I feel like we're probably going to see even more stories because he will probably get released again because that's kind of what we're dealing with here. Staying on immigration, Mario, I know you're an immigrant. I know a lot of immigrants that are actually very, very frustrated with the current situation on immigration. In fact, I have some friends that are of Indian heritage, and they're the people I know that are the most outraged at what's happened with the Indian immigration. We've let in, I think in 23 alone, there was 500,000 international students from India in the country. We let in the TFWs, and some of these people, they tend to come from uh, lower classes in India. So people like villagers, basically, and they've come here and there are some people who have argued, and I've believed this is true, that they're not integrating, they're not even trying to integrate. And we've seen, for example, every week there's a new video of someone, usually of Indian heritage, being caught dumping loads of garbage in nature. There's been, the Khalistan everywhere. There's been issues at like Wasaga Beach. The list goes on, and I was just wondering, like, how have you approached this? Because I know you've talked a bit about this, and what should people take away from what we're seeing right now when it comes to immigration and apparent challenges with integration?
Well, I'll tell you a story. Someone recognized me at the gym on the weekend. I went on an unusual time, and it was an Indian man, and he came up to me. He had a very thick accent. He is much younger than me. And he said, Mario, thank you so much for what you do. He's like, we're so embarrassed for the immigrants that have been allowed recently into the country. And he basically went on and he told me, he's like, you have no idea how many scammers I know, how many people like within like our community that we know that are committing crimes. Like he's like, they're sick of it. They're sick of it. The reality is there's Indians who grew up in Canada. There's Indian Canadians. There's people from India who immigrated to Canada. No one's ever had an issue with this in the last 10 years. People have to, most people don't realize most of my closest friends growing up are Indian. Even now, some of my closest friends right now are Indian. I have like family who's half Indian. And so when I speak on these things, I don't speak out of hate on this. I speak purely on facts, and that's what they appreciate. They know that I don't look at color and think like, "Oh, this person doesn't belong." I really don't care where people come from. I care that they conform. I care that they're Canadian. I care that they respect, like, what we have in this country and, dumping garbage, acting like complete, um, degenerates in public, constantly harassing women. These are
Mhm.
not the values that we would say represent Canada. This is not welcome in our country, and I've consistently spoken out about this. My wife held the door for a guy when she was going into Swiss Chalet because his hands were full. She held the door open for him, and he says, "Good girl. Thank you. That's a good girl." Who are you talking to?
Unbelievable.
She sent me a text message. I was waiting in the car with my kids. I wasn't, obviously paying attention, looking up. I can't hear from my car. She sends me a message saying that. I immediately got out of the car and she saw me come in and she started laughing. She's like, "I knew you were going to run in and I waited for you to get back." And she's like, "I waited for him to leave
Yeah.
because she knew it was going to get ugly." And the thing is I have no tolerance, and Canadians are past the point of tolerance in this. And the reality is, unfortunately, and I come from a third world country. I was born in El Salvador, and I can tell you this myself. There's people back, I would say, in the early 2000s that were part of MS-13, that were young men, shaved head like myself, tatted up, that you did not want in this country. I would speak out consistently against it, and I would say, like, this is not the type of immigrant you want. The reality is there's issues with different countries all across the board when you're bringing in basically the bottom of the crop. Like, they're
Yeah.
not they're no longer bringing the best of the best. Like, these are not the doctors, they're not the engineers, they're not people who are here to work hard. And the ones that are the ones that get to suffer because to paint 100% of, all the, temporary foreign workers, to paint 100% of every single person with their student visa with the same brush is also incorrect. And I think it's incredibly awful. I feel incredibly awful for them because what is happening is you have a chunk of people who have not conformed and have created ultimately this issue that we're seeing today. We see it with crime. We see it with everything. There's just no respect for our culture.
Yes, yes. You look at Indians in particular. So in the US, Indian Americans are the wealthiest ethnic group because
Correct.
they've brought in the best of the best. Similar in Canada, like my eye doctor is Indian. There's some Indian people in the church, very, very successful. I can give you a whole listing of their restaurants, their business people. But we had Alex Brown on the show a few months ago, and he explained that Indian government, their problem now is they have too many young working age men in their country. So it's actually a policy of the Indian government to try to offload some of these men to other countries. And Mario, if a country wants to get rid of some of its people, do you think they're going to send away their best or not their best? So we have people like the Indian High Commissioner saying, you need 60 million people. Do you think he's going to send them their best 60 million, their worst 60 million? And unfortunately, I think that's what we've seen. And what's happened is people are scared to talk about it because they're scared to be called racist. But the thing is, if we had American international students that were committing crimes on Canadian soil, joining gangs that terrorize law-abiding people in this country, striking hunger strikes when their visas are over to try to stay longer than they have, filming themselves drunk driving through residential neighborhoods and then putting that up on Snapchat, there would be mass outrage. Everybody would be calling it out. And I just think we can't have two standards here. Bad behavior is bad behavior. My last question for you, Mario, staying on immigration, you have in the past, I would say probably 1 or 2 weeks, you kind of butted heads a bit with the Dominion Society. So, for those who don't know, the Dominion Society is a group, and they advocate for something called remigration. So they basically want very very large numbers of deportations from the country. They're basically an anti-immigration group, and there was I would say like a sizable contingent of especially young conservative men who are attracted to them because they feel kind of frustrated with the current situation, and they have grown a lot, but they've also been controversial, and you've called them out and basically said you don't agree with them. So could you explain what you critical of certain immigration policy, why then not the Dominion Society?
Well, here's the thing. I think everyone in Canada will agree at some point in time, I was an immigrant, their parents were immigrants, or their grandparents were immigrants. Like the country is founded ultimately on immigration policies, regardless of where the country's, what the countries of origin. Like everyone, I would say, was living in great harmony 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Like we didn't have the issues that we have today. And y- I don't think there's a bigger advocate for deportations of criminals for us to get our immigration in check. I would probably argue that there isn't a single person in the country that has gotten more views than I have ever in the last year, 2 years, and even 3 years combined related to immigration. And I'm not saying I'm completely anti-immigration and immigrants are all bad and this is a horrible thing that we're doing and we should lock up our borders. I'm talking about responsible immigration. I'm talking about things that are logic. And that's what I focus on. I don't focus on left, I don't focus on right. It just so happens a lot of my policies line up with the Conservative Party of Canada because the Liberal has moved to the left so up way too far. Dominion comes in and they say, Mario, shut up. You're an illegal immigrant. We want to deport you. Well, yeah, guess what? What are you going to tell a 5-year-old who is fleeing their country because of a civil war that is brutal, that literally got their paperwork? Like my family got their paperwork, I think a week after we came into the country. You don't think, are you going to tell a 5-year-old, get out of here? Do you think a 5-year-old, me, a 5-year-old Mario, planned his way to get to the border and get into Canada? It's such an absurd concept. I have been a Canadian citizen for longer than the founder of the Dominion Society has been alive. And he's calling for my deportation. Give me a break. Like his grandparents come have Jamaican and I think Albanian ancestry. I can't remember what the ancestry is. And he's coming in here. And the problem is they're all emboldened to make remarks online that make them look so tough. But I know in reality, they're all a bunch, I honestly think they're all a bunch of little teddy bears. They all act tough. They say these really tough words. They say brutal things, not only about myself, but to other conservatives, because we support those reasonable policies. And it's their view is it's their way or the highway. And you tell anyone with the reasonable mind that Mario should be deported, good luck. To me, that is the ultimate grift. Because if your policy is to get Canadian citizens who have been citizens for longer than you have been alive to be then deported, who have paid more taxes in a single year than they ever will in their lifetime, who have created more jobs in a single year than they ever will in their lifetime, and have contributed more to society and to the country and contributed more to charity than they ever will, and you want to deport that person out of your country, you're completely lost. And that's the problem with the Dominion Society, and that's why I'm not a huge fan of them. I just what they're selling is this fantasy that is never going to happen. And so if you're selling people on a fantasy, is that not ultimately what I think is a lie? To me, you're swindling people out of money to grow your little group for something that just won't happen. They're not a political party. So what are they doing here?
I would probably just add, like, you're an example of a model immigrant. You came here, you built a very successful uh, business. You, as you say, employ people. Now you give back and you create good political content. Like we want people like that. As someone, I'm just in my first year of entrepreneurship myself. I look up to people like you. So I think it's probably not very wise to be advocating for the deportation of individuals like you. I mean, that guy I showed you in Guelph, to me, like, where where are the calls to deport him from them? I haven't seen any. Maybe if I'm wrong, like, you can correct me. Like, I'm not here to attack anyone, but I just haven't seen any. But I have seen lots of calls from people associated with that group to deport you, and I don't really see what is useful there. Mario, I know you have to get going soon, so thanks for coming on. But is there anything else you want to say? The floor is yours.
No, I mean, I just want to say thank you very much for having me on. And yeah, it's been a pleasure. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime.
And this concludes our interview. I hope you liked it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until then, God bless.